Before we go into this energy, I need to take just a moment with you, with all of you, because this community has become something I genuinely did not anticipate when I started showing up here. The depth of what you share in the comments, the way you hold each other, the trust you extend to this space, it moves me every single time. To those who have been here from the beginning, you already know what this is. And to whoever is new today, whoever found this through a share or a search or just a quiet feeling that they needed to land somewhere real, you are welcome here. Something new to bring you. Now let us go in together. Virgo, they said it out loud. Not to you, not yet, but to someone who matters to them, someone in their inner circle. Someone whose opinion carries weight in their life and whose reaction to what was confessed landed in a way that they are still sitting with. They said the words, they messed up with you, and they miss you. And the saying of it, the actual spoken admission of something they had been keeping sealed inside the pressurized container of their own private guilt and longing, has changed something not just in them, in the field between you. Because words have weight, and words spoken aloud about another person travel, not always through conventional channels, not always in ways that logic can map or explain, but they travel. They find their way into the energetic space between people who are genuinely connected. And right now, those words are moving towards you through that space with the specific momentum of a truth that has finally been released from containment. This is what I want to walk you through today. Not just the fact of what was said, but the full, layered, emotionally complex reality of why it was said, what it cost to say it, and what it means for everything that comes next. Let me pull back the curtain on the moment itself, because it did not happen casually. It did not emerge from a light conversation or a comfortable exchange where vulnerability was already on the table and the confession simply joined what was already there. It happened because they could not hold it anymore. There is a specific quality to the moment when a person breaks on something they have been containing, when the weight of what they are carrying finally exceeds the capacity of the container they built to hold it. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is extraordinarily quiet, a pause in an ordinary conversation, a look that changes before the words do, a question asked by someone close to them, perhaps innocently, perhaps with the specific intuition of someone who already suspected something was being kept, that found the crack in the carefully maintained surface and slipped through it. However, it happened, something gave way. And what came out was honest in the way that things are honest when they have been under pressure long enough, without the careful editing of a planned confession, without the measured language of someone who had time to prepare what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it, raw, specific, more complete than they intended. They said they messed up. And when they said it, the person listening knew immediately that they were not speaking casually, that this was not a performative expression of mild regret that asks for nothing more than a sympathetic nod. This was the real thing, the specific, uncomfortable, this is genuinely costing me something kind of admission that people only make when the alternative, continuing to carry it alone in silence, has become genuinely unbearable. I want to speak to what messed up actually means in the context of what I am feeling for your situation, because that phrase can cover a vast range of things and the specific nature of what this person is acknowledging matters. What I feel when I sit with this energy is not a single dramatic failure. It is something more nuanced than that, and in some ways more significant. What this person is acknowledging in the private space of this conversation with someone they trust is a pattern, a series of moments, choices, small failures of courage or presence or honesty that accumulated over time into something large enough to cost them what they now realize they cannot afford to have lost. They are not saying, I did one terrible thing. They are saying, I was not who I should have been, consistently, in ways that I told myself at the time were manageable, were not that significant, were things you would not notice or that would not matter in the end. They mattered. You noticed, and the end they did not anticipate is the one they are now living in, the one where you are not there, where the space you occupied in their life and in their interior world is empty in a way that has proven far more consequential than they calculated when they were making the small accumulated choices that led here. That is the mess they are reckoning with. Not one mistake, a posture, a way of being with you that was consistently less than what you deserved and less than what they were actually capable of. And they know it. They said it out loud to someone who matters to them. That takes something. I want to bring the cards into this now because I feel their presence strongly in this reading, and what they are showing is specific enough to be worth naming. The first card I am drawn to for this person is the Five of Cups. For those who know tarot, you already feel the heaviness of that. The figure standing before spilled cups, looking at what has been lost, while behind them, unseen or unacknowledged, two cups remain standing. This is the card of grief that is so focused on what has been lost that it struggles to see what remains, of mourning that is genuine and warranted, but that has the quality of someone who cannot yet turn around. This person is in their Five of Cups moment. They are standing in front of what spilled, what they let spill, what they did not protect with the care it deserved. And the grief of that is real and it is present, and it is the emotional weather of their days right now in a way that the people closest to them are beginning to notice clearly enough to ask about. The second card is the Knight of Cups in reverse. And what this tells me is that the movement toward you, the reaching, the wanting to make something known is present, but it is not yet clean. Not yet fully formed into the kind of decisive, clear, no longer ambiguous action that would actually change the dynamic between you. There is still something being worked through, still something being prepared. The intention is real, the direction is real, but the courage to complete the movement has not yet fully arrived. It is arriving. It is not there yet. Does this land somewhere specific for you, Virgo? Is there someone in your life whose absence has had this particular quality, where you could sense that something was unresolved, not just for you, but for them? Where the silence between you never quite achieved the neutrality that actual completion tends to produce? Let me know in the comments what this is stirring, because I think many of you came to this reading today carrying something specific, something with a name and a face and a history that this energy is speaking directly to. Now I want to go into the conversation itself, the one that happened between this person and the someone they trusted enough to finally crack open in front of. I feel three things were said that went beyond the surface admission of missing you and messing up. The first thing was specific. They named something, a particular moment or a particular pattern or a particular version of themselves that they can now see clearly, only because the clarity that comes with loss has stripped away the comfortable rationalizations they were using while they were still inside the situation. They pointed at something exact and said, that specific thing, that is where I failed. And the naming of it, the specificity of the acknowledgement, landed differently than a general expression of regret would have. It landed with the weight of someone who has genuinely examined themselves and not looked away from what the examination revealed. The second thing was about you directly, about who you are and what you brought to their life and the specific quality of what you offered that they did not receive with the fullness it deserved. And I want to pause on this because what they said about you in this private conversation was not the language of someone idealizing a lost connection through the distorting lens of nostalgia. It was accurate. It was the language of someone describing something real, someone who spent enough time in your presence to know the actual texture of who you are and who is now, in your absence, giving that texture the clear eyed appreciation they were too defended or too distracted or too much inside their own patterns to fully offer when you were still available to receive it. They spoke about you with a reverence that surprised even the person they were speaking to. That reverence is not grief making something bigger than it was. That reverence is accuracy, arriving late. The third thing was the most vulnerable. It was the admission that they do not know what to do with what they are feeling, that they are not sure whether reaching out is possible or appropriate or wise, that they are carrying something with nowhere to put it and no clear path forward, and that the not knowing is its own specific kind of suffering layered on top of everything else. They are in that not knowing right now, fully, uncomfortably, without a map. Let me speak to the person they told this to, because that person's response matters to what happens next. And I feel it clearly in the energy. They listened, really listened in the way that good listeners do, without immediately moving to fix or advise or redirect. They held the space for the full weight of what was being shared without making it smaller or more manageable than it actually was. And then they said something, something honest, something that did not simply validate everything this person was feeling, but that also gently and with care introduced a perspective they had not fully considered. They said something about you, about the cost of what happened from your side, about the reality of what it means to be on the receiving end of the kind of gradual, accumulated, well intentioned, but insufficient way of being that this person is now reckoning with having offered you. They humanized your experience in a room where only this person's experience had been present. And that humanizing landed hard because this person had been so inside their own grief and their own guilt that they had not fully sat with yours, with what it actually felt like to be you inside this situation, with what it cost you, with the specific kind of quiet, patient, dignified disappointment that is Virgo's particular mode of experiencing being let down by someone they chose to trust. They are sitting with yours now, and it has deepened what they are already carrying significantly. I need to speak to something here that I feel is important and that I have not yet addressed. The confession that happened, the speaking of it to someone close, was not calculated, but it is having an effect beyond the two people who were in the room. Because the person they told has their own network, their own relationships, their own way of processing what they hear and carrying it into other conversations. Information moves, not always deliberately, not always in ways that the original speaker would have chosen or authorized, but in the way that significant emotional admissions tend to ripple outward from the moment of their speaking, touching other people's awareness, gradually creating a widening circle of people who know something real happened, who know that this person is not okay, who know that what was lost was not small. That ripple is in motion. And for some of you, the way this comes to your awareness may be through exactly that ripple, through someone in your own circle saying something, mentioning something, letting slip something that tells you more about what has been happening in this person's private world than you currently know. Pay attention to what comes to you through peripheral channels in the days ahead. The universe delivers information through many different hands. I want to go somewhere deeper now, into something that I feel is the emotional core of this reading for Virgo specifically, not for the other person and their guilt and their missing and their private confession. For you, because this reading is ultimately about you. And the question underneath everything I have described is this: what do you do with knowing that someone is sitting in the private wreckage of having understood too late what they had with you? What do you do with knowing that your name is being spoken in rooms you are not in, with a tenderness and a regret that they are not yet brave enough to direct toward you where it actually belongs? There is no single answer. I want to be clear about that. There is no correct emotional response, no prescribed path forward, no spiritually advanced position that this information obligates you to take. What there is fullness, a filling in of the picture, a completion of information that allows you to see the full landscape of what actually happened between you and this person, rather than the partial, incomplete, necessarily one sided view that absence and silence tend to produce. You did not imagine it. Whatever you felt, whatever you sensed, whatever quietly told you that what existed between you was real, even when circumstances made it complicated or incomplete, you were right. It was real. Real enough that its absence has broken something in someone. Real enough that they are telling people about it. Real enough that it is the unresolved thing living in the center of their days when they are being honest with themselves. Let that fill something in you that silence and uncertainty may have emptied out. Now I want to speak to the specific Virgo experience of being on this side of this dynamic, because I know it has its own complexity that deserves to be named. There is a part of you, perhaps a larger part than you fully acknowledge, that already knew, not because you were told, not because anyone sat you down and delivered this information, but because you are Virgo, because your perception is extraordinary, because you read the energy of situations and people with an accuracy that has nothing to do with what is explicitly communicated and everything to do with what you sense beneath the surface. You felt the weight of their missing even when they were performing normalcy. You registered the specific quality of their absence as something more than neutral space. You knew, even if you did not allow yourself to fully know that you knew that something significant was happening on the other side of the distance between you. And knowing without being able to confirm is its own particular kind of exhausting. This reading is a confirmation not to change what you decide, not to determine your next move or to reopen something that your own wisdom may have determined needs to stay closed, but simply to confirm, to give the knowing you have been carrying the solid ground of verification. What you sensed was real. It is still real. And now you can decide what to do with that reality from a place of full information rather than the uncertain half seen. Is this just what I want to believe space you have been navigating? That is a gift. Even when gifts arrive wrapped in complicated feelings, let me close by speaking to what I feel is moving in the energy ahead. This person is building towards something. The confession to their trusted person was not an end point, it was a release valve, a way of externalizing enough of what they are carrying to make the next step possible. And the next step, whatever form it takes, is pointed in your direction. Whether that step reaches you, when it reaches you, and what it looks like when it arrives, I cannot tell you with specificity. What I can tell you is that it is forming, being shaped by the combination of their own reckoning and the response of the person they trusted, and the gradual mounting, no longer ignorable clarity that silence is not actually resolution. Silence between people who had something real is not resolution. It is suspension, and suspended things do not stay suspended indefinitely. They either fall or they find their ground. What I feel in this energy is a finding of ground, a movement not yet complete but genuinely in progress toward the kind of honest, undefended. This is what is actually true communication that should have been present much earlier and was not. It is coming now, late, but coming. Virgo, as we close, I want to leave you with one thing, not advice, not a directive, just a truth that I feel very clearly in your energy and that I think you deserve to hear simply and without elaboration. You are worth the confession, worth the admission to someone else, worth the private reckoning, worth the broken open honesty of someone who finally ran out of room to keep pretending that losing you was something they could simply absorb and move past. Worth all of it. And you have been worth it the entire time. Not just now that someone has finally said so out loud. You were worth it before the confession. In the silence, in the uncertainty, in the dignified, graceful, deeply Virgo way, you continued to be fully yourself through all of it, without making your worth dependent on anyone else's recognition of it. That is the thing about you that breaks people open eventually. Not the missing of you, not the regret of losing you, but the specific, undeniable, impossible to rationalize away recognition that what you carry is rare. That the way you love and the way you show up and the way you hold your integrity, even when holding it costs you something, is not something that can simply be replaced with someone more convenient or more available or less demanding of what you actually deserve. They know that now. They said it out loud to someone who will remember they said it, and somewhere in the deepest and most honest part of you, you already knew it was true. Let the knowing finally rest. You have earned it. Leave me something in the comments today. Tell me if this confirmed something you have been sensing, Tell me how long you have been carrying the weight of this particular uncertainty. Tell me what part of this reading made you stop and breathe differently. I read every single one. Every word you share here becomes part of something real. Until next time, Virgo, they said your name with their whole heart in a room you were not in, and the walls of that room could not contain it.